Okay, we are officially recording now. And let's see, welcome to everybody who is here live and obviously everyone who catches the replay. But I appreciate you being here. I hope that what I share will be of tremendous value. Now, if you've heard me talk about some of this before, every time I do a webinar, it's a little bit different. I may use mostly the same slides, but I'm always sharing different aspects of things. So I always want to make sure that if you come back to my webinars again and again, if you watch the replays again and again, one after another, that every single time I've got some new and different values for you, because I always want it to be worth your while to be here. So today, we're going to talk specifically about the Ohana Way. In several of the webinars leading up to this particular one that we've talked about Ohana networking, we've talked about the leadership blind spot, we've talked about the Ohana conversations, and we've gone over a lot of different issues and a lot of different aspects and approaches insofar as I'm able to do so in this kind of format this quickly. Today, I want to share with you some of the power of the Ohana Way. And in particular, well, let me start off with this cool graphic. And in particular, what Ohana means. That in the Ohana Conversations part of the course, I go over it pretty quickly because it's in the books, but I recognize that not everyone here has read the books and not everyone here has been through the programs yet. And so just to give you a taste of what's in there. Now, how did Ohana come to the notice of the business world? It started in Las Vegas. So I was born in Hawaii, grew up in California, loved a vacation in Las Vegas. So a few years ago, I'm in Las Vegas and I'm on a date. And it's a first date, and so particularly on first dates, I'm especially careful about just put the phone away and don't look at it at all during the date unless you already know you're expecting some kind of emergency contact. And so I was having a lovely evening, and there's this place called the Lake of Dreams, and it is gorgeous, and I'm on the patio, and we're having some drinks and just getting to know each other, and it's a nice date. Went on until about midnight. And then the date's over and I saw her off and I'm walking back to my car and I take a look at my phone. And as I'm looking at it, I notice that I've got phone calls. I've got voicemails. In Facebook, I've got messages. I've got voice messages. I've got attempts to get hold of me by FaceTime. I've had someone 13 different ways he was trying to get hold of me. Well, when someone's trying to get hold of you that much, you want to get back to them quickly. So I didn't actually listen to any of the messages. I just called him back. And what I found out when I talked to him is that while I was on my date, a car crashed into my business. So this is a picture of my storefront. And if you happen to just be listening by audio and you're not looking at the video right now, you might want to go take a quick look. Because when you look at the car that's in there, you go, how did it get in there? And even more than just what you can see in the picture. You can see in the picture that, okay, there's a storefront and all of the glass is smashed, all of it. And yet, when you look at the angle of the car, it looks like the car would have to have driven through from the suite next door or kind of come swerving in from the street. Because when you look at it, it looks like, okay, there's a sidewalk and then there's street. Well, that's not quite the case. That's a walkway, and then there's the drive portion of the parking lot. Then there's some parking spaces. Then there's some grass with some trees. Then there's a sidewalk, and then there's the street. And so when I saw this picture, I'm going, how in the world is that even possible? And he showed me the pictures of the inside, and you're obviously emergency crews are still there. You can see the fireman there on the left of one of the pictures. That gentleman on the inside is the county building inspector because he's checking to make sure that there's no danger of the structure falling down. And as it just so happens, this car missed by like a foot, less than a foot. The support post on one side crashed through, wiped out my parent lounge, wiped out my pro shop, and crashed into the wall just a couple of feet behind the other support post. Ended up doing No structural damage to the building as far as anything that was going to have to support, be a load bearing, but completely destroyed my storefront. And then that crash into the wall smashed through to the other side and completely destroyed my kid lounge. Now, no one was in there at the time, so nobody got hurt other than the people who were in the vehicle. And ultimately, long-term, they were fine. They got checked out by the paramedics. One of them had to go to the hospital, ultimately was released and they were fine. But look at this damage. I'm in Las Vegas. This is in San Diego. What am I going to do? Well, what I did after chatting with this person, now how did this person find out is because they were one of the clients. And so they trained there and they got a phone call from one of his friends across the street who heard something, went to her window and looked and says, oh my gosh, that's the place Jamar trains. And so she calls Jamar and Jamar shows up on site and he's the one who sends me some of these pictures. Well, I make one phone call to one of my black belts that comes and trains periodically who lives nearby, so I know she can be there in minutes, and let her know what's going on. And just tell her you have total authority to make any decisions that need to be made. If they won't let you make the decision, they have to talk to me. Of course, I'll talk to them, but I just want you to know you have total authority. Anything you think is a good idea, I will 100% back you up. Well, in the process of getting ready to come down, she also told her brother and her father, who also lived nearby. And within minutes, less than an hour after the accident occurred, while all the emergency crews are still there, I've got a team there. Now note, this isn't the team that works for me. These are my clients. And starting from that moment, I have 24-hour security. Someone spends the night in the place because it's wide open and there's tens of thousands of dollars of stuff people could go in and just walk off with. So I have someone who's there and then they switched off in the morning and some of these pictures are up on social media and help just shows up. And they start putting things together. They start cleaning up. They start gathering up the trash. The news shows up. And it's my clients who make contact with the media. They send the media the pictures. They handle the interview. And they start getting things cleaned up. And within 24 hours, it's cleaned up, it's boarded up, it's safe. All the electrical that could potentially be dangerous has all been capped off. And 24 hours after the accident, while I'm still out of town, it's done. It's done. Now, here's part of the amazing thing. These people didn't work for me. They were my clients. Well, while I was in Las Vegas, amongst my social time, I have other business leaders that I needed to meet, people who own their own business. And of course, I'm friends with other business owners. And I was getting messages saying, oh, I saw what happened. I'm so sorry we're going to miss seeing you for lunch. But, I understand you have to go. Oh, no, I'm still here. We'll still have lunch. Well, wait, didn't someone crash into your place? Don't you have to go back to San Diego? So, oh, no, it's all being handled. And in particular, I get a phone call from my friend and sometimes business coach. Well, now business coach, but at that time, I knew she was a business coach, but we weren't working together yet, who saw that and said like, wow, I'm so sad that you're losing your vacation. I said, no, I'm still in Las Vegas. They're taking care of it. And she said, well, who's taking care of it? I didn't think you had any employees in San Diego to do that. I said, well, no, it's the clients that are taking care of it. And she said, what? How is that happening? I said, they're my Ohana. She said, what's Ohana? It's a Hawaiian word. It means family. So they're family and they're taking care of it. And in fact, 3 of them told me, don't come home. Stay on vacation. We've got it. And one of those 3 said, don't you dare come home. We'll be offended if you don't think we can take care of this for you. Stay on vacation. And then there I am. I am on vacation in Las Vegas with my place having been crashed into by a car. And it got taken care of by my Ohana. Well, that's when Virginia decided that that was more powerful than even having raving fans. Having people who will go out of their way, military officers, other business owners, parents of clients and siblings of clients all come out because this is the Ohana, this is the home, this is the place. And they all wanted to show up and help. In fact, so many people came out to help without being asked. The only request for help that went out was my one phone call just to tell the black belt she had the authority. And that's the only call I made. I didn't even tell her, oh, you know, you have to go down and take care of it. I just let her know what happened. I already knew she would want to go help. And I just let her know, you have the authority to make any decision that needs to be made. And then there we went. Everything just got done. And in fact, part of what was funny is you see how it was boarded up. And at one point, I was on a video call with someone who was telling me, well, we've gone as far as we can get. We would love to board the place up, but we don't have any vehicle we can get the wood with. And just at that time, one of the dads, who I know has a big pickup truck, came wandering in the back of the video and said, oh, wait, he has a truck. And they turned around and they managed to get to the lumber yard before it was closed, got all the lumber that they needed. And then I had a team of 3 that was going to do overnight security. And so the 3 of them and then the 2 older adults who had carpentry experience helped teach how to board something up. And then the 5 of them got all the boarding up taken care of. And then poof, it was all done. It was pretty incredible. Not a surprise to me though. But apparently it's quite a surprise to other people because they just don't see this very often. But as great as it is to have Ohana, sometimes life doesn't feel that way. And well, let me just kind of share with you kind of what it does feel like sometimes, and you can decide for yourself if you can relate. Sometimes what life feels like is that it's a battle. You wake up in the morning and you put on your armor and you head out to the field of battle. And that when you head out, it's time to get going in the morning. And hopefully you've had enough sleep, at least on a Monday morning when you've had a nice, refreshing weekend. You put on that helmet and pick up the shield and take up that sword. You've got all your, and you head out to the field of battle and you feel ready to tackle things. But as the day goes on, sometimes as the week goes on, and sometimes just the way life goes, you begin to feel like you're out on this battlefield all by yourself. And the armor starts to feel really heavy, and then you know it's protecting you, but it feels so constricting. And you've got this tidal wave of orcs in front of you, and you've got this dragon with a roar like thunder in the sky, all threatening doom. And sometimes you just get tired. And in that mix, you just have to stay armored up. You know, we call it the rat race because there's a bunch of rats in it, and that it's just not easy. And day-to-day living under those kind of circumstances, especially for those of us who are running our own business, those of us who are putting out fires all the time, this is how I feel a lot. Armored up, dealing with a vast space of just everything, constantly landing on my desk. Now, I will tell you for myself personally, I don't go through this very much anymore. But there are always seasons. Sometimes it's a week or 2. Sometimes it's been months at a time, where you feel like just to get through the day-to-day, you've got to arm her up. And here's what we need when this is what work is like a lot, or what a chunk of our life is like a lot, regardless of where in our life it is we need a place to relax. So imagine with me, a day spent armored. That helmet, feeling so protective when you put it on, is now just this heavy weight on your neck. And your shoulders ache from holding the shield, and your back hurts from the uneven weight on it all day. And then your grip on that sword that felt so light and easy to move when you started the day. Now your forearm burns and your hands feel like they can't let go. And exhausted at the end of the day, finally out of the fight, finally able to rest, finally able to take off that helmet, the protection for your head, your mind, your thinking, your sight, your hearing, because finally you have no enemies here. It's hard to peel your fingers free from your grip on your sword, but you do, and you put it down. Your other arm is too tired to try to set the shield down, so you drop your arm and release your grip and sort of shake it off until it finally slips down. You remove your breastplate and you take the longest, deepest breath you've had all day. You feel your ribs stretch out as you're able to really breathe again. You take off the last pieces of your armor and relax. Safe at last in your oasis. Oasis, be a refreshing refuge. Be a person where others can drop their guard because they know they are safe. That's part of Ohana. Ohana means family. And family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Have you seen any of the Lilo and Stitch movies? You know where that quote's from. And it's a pretty good description of what Ohana should be. That the idea of Ohana is everything positive that family is supposed to be. Now, whether it is or not, well, because we have human beings in it. But that's what Ohana is. And we also teach it as an acronym, OHANA. Ohana means family, and the acronym OHANA stands for Oasis. Be a refreshing refuge. And I often say it this way, Oasis. Then there's harmony. Embrace infinite diversity and infinite combinations aimed at greatness. And I often say that as harmony. Then there's assertiveness. Assertiveness is moving forward on purpose with respect for others. And I'll say that one as assertiveness. Then we have nobility, to be our highest and best selves. And that one, you'll hear me say, nobility. And finally, we have aloha, which is love in all its many meanings and manifestations. Now, I know this part's not in the slide, but here's a simple definition of love is 1, I want the best for you. 2, I want to be the best for you. And number 3, I want you to have transcendent joy. Now, what do some of these mean? Well, I want the best. Best is a compass heading. The idea of a compass heading means there is no best. There's no one thing to say, okay, that's it, nailed it. No matter what changes, no matter how you change or I change or life changes, no matter the shift in circumstances, the best will always be exactly the same. That's not quite how life typically works. That's why we say best is a compass heading. What's best for our first grader might not be best for our second grader. And then by the time someone's in high school, what was best in second grade probably isn't going to be the exact same thing and look the same way in 12th grade. And then in college and so on and so forth. So part of wanting the best for you means that at any given point in time, there's all these different things. And sometimes we'll come across something that's better. Well, better is on that compass heading toward best. And so now I want that better thing for you. Then that other one, if I want to be the best for you. Well, that doesn't mean that I'm going to change, although I may. What it is likely means is I am going to choose the relationship with you that is most ideally suited for us, given who you are and given who I am. Now, let me give you a business example of that. As a martial arts grandmaster, I teach karate, jujitsu, and kobujitsu, which is weapons. And that leads into a complete lifestyle, whole person, whole life art form focused toward vivid bliss, using martial arts as a medium to carry this forward at the principal level. It's not competitive, although we do win trophies, and I've had a substantial collection of them myself. It's cooperative. It's relational. Our goal is to use our Ohana skills to diffuse relationships. And we even have a sequence of physical techniques to do that. We're not training you to step into the MMA ring and battle it out in the octagon. We're not training you to step into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament and have it out on the mat. That's not what we're teaching. That means if someone shows up and that's what they're looking for, I want to be the best for you means I send you somewhere that teaches you what you need to know. Likewise in business here. If what you want to learn is how to have that whole person, whole life relationship so that you can diffuse potential conflicts with clients so you don't lose clients. So you can diffuse potential conflicts with vendors so that your vendors want to serve you and they want to provide good value to you. If you want to preserve your relationships with your network, with your referral partners, with your team members, then you want to come to me. But what if what you're looking for is someone to help you with your website and you're willing to pay me $5,000 for it? Well, I might like the $5,000 for it, but I'm not a website person. So I'm going to send you to someone who does that kind of tech. What if what you're looking for is someone who's going to help you structure your business and how to language some of your business things so you can build a referral network and you can plug into networks and that you can generate and build a business by referral? Well, then I'm going to send you to my friend Virginia Muskis because she is the best at that. And if I want to be the best for you and she's what you need, I'm going to send you to her and tell you, you need to spend your money with her, not with me. And that's part of me being best for you. So love is, I want the best for you. I want to be the best for you. One more aspect of that, another business version I'm going to use. If I want to be the best for you, that means I need to be good at my job. So I talked about the idea that, well, I may not have to change, we'll just choose the relationship that's most appropriate. Well, the other part of that is I also may have to change. I may need to learn new skills. I may need to develop as a leader. I may need to learn new ways of interacting with people. I may need to learn new technology as technology advances. And so I may also need to make changes and adjustments in order to be best for you. And then that third part of I want you to have transcendent joy. Joy is like 3 levels up. So think about, there's pleasure. Now, there's places you could go with this whole idea of pleasure, but I'm going to use cheesecake. So when I take a bite of that cheesecake, the pleasure of that taste begins. As soon as I've taken my last bite and finally swallowed, and that sweet aftertaste of that last bite has faded away, the pleasure has ended. Pleasure has a beginning, middle, and end because it's the experience. Then there's happiness. Happiness is bigger than pleasure because happiness can include the pleasure, that I'm happy about the pleasure I'm having, but I can also be happy about the anticipation of pleasure. I can also be happy about the memory of pleasure. And so you think about pleasure is the experience and the happiness is my relationship with that experience. Then there's joy. Now, joy is bigger than happiness because joy isn't just connected to a particular situation. I can have joy, which is like a happy feeling, whether there's a good thing going on or not, whether I'm anticipating or remembering a good thing or not. I can have joy just because that good thing exists, because I understand there's principles and there's ideals and there's values, and even if I might not be partaking of them of the moment, that I rest my sense of happiness in the fact of their existence. I'll tell you, the first time I found out there was a cruise that went to Antarctica, I thought, oh my gosh, that is so cool. I had joy over that, the happy feeling over this thing that I'm not anticipating being in Antarctica. I'm certainly not remembering being in Antarctica. It's pretty clear that I'm not actually in Antarctica, but boy, do I think it's cool that such a thing exists and that regular old non-scientist civilians can actually take a cruise to Antarctica, set foot on those shores, and then, if we're just, willing to do crazy enough things, we can even do that polar bear plunge into the Antarctica waters. And I have a kind of colleague that did that, and she shared video, and when watching, like, okay, yeah, so she's showing herself in a bathing suit running into the water. And then as it pulls back, she's like, oh my gosh, she's in Antarctica doing that. That is so cool, or freezing cold. And that's like what joy is, that you don't have to experience it or anticipate. You can have that joy anyway, because that's just what's there. That's how things work. That's what things are. And that can be awesome. And when I love someone, that means I want you to have that level of happiness, that it doesn't depend upon the experience of pleasure or a connection to a particular situation, that it's bigger than that. And so when we talk about aloha, that's part of what I'm talking about. And now, how do I say aloha? As with all the others, aloha is aloha. So when we have all 5 of them put together, this is how we do the whole set. So we have ohana, oasis, harmony, assertiveness, nobility, and aloha. Now, let's go just a little bit deeper in each one. We won't spend a lot of time doing that. But part of what I'm going to be teaching that will use it, not in just this webinar, this is part of the whole 6-week course, is the Ohana Change Conversation. And now there's 3 different levels of Ohana conversations. The change conversation is the most challenging one. And it's the Ohana way of having conversations when something must change. And I'm just going to kind of quickly go over the basic model, because I've done this a lot before, where there's a framework, conversation, and change. The framework just means that you have a way you come to it. And then the conversation is, what is your strategy for your communication? And then the change is, so now what is the process that you use to try to initiate or try to achieve that change? Now, our most common experience is something that feels a little bit more like this, with the harder edge and dropping on the point and kind of, a pointy throwing star type thing with the other thing, where it's emotion, blame, or attack is a common framework. People are looking to like absolve themselves of blame, or they're coming from a place of whatever they're feeling. And the framework kind of logs out, well, what is someone's agenda? And if someone's angry, that means that their agenda is going to tend to be fueled by that anger. If someone doesn't want to have responsibility, they're looking for someone to blame, and often that's, of course, connected to anger, then they might be after you to blame, or they might just be trying to deflect blame to someone else. It's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. Or, of course, they could be on the attack with you. Very commonly, there's what I call backwards communication. They essentially expect to be understood by you, but they're not necessarily defining their terms, which means you could just be completely missing each other. And then in today's political climate, one of the things I was sharing is like, okay, when someone uses this phrase, it could mean this, 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 it could mean this. So before you start arguing with them, maybe you can have a conversation about what it is they mean when they say that. And so part of communication means don't just expect to be understood. Make sure you know what's going on here, so you connect up first. But very commonly when people do this, they just come at you and they expect to be understood. And then they want to affect change by just demanding something be a certain way, or they'll try to manipulate you, or they'll just try to outright force you. Do it this way or you're fired. When you communicate, this was a cool stat that someone shared with me. Dr. John Gottman from the Gottman Institute, they do kind of these relationship laboratories. And so they get a lot of stats on stuff that most of us would never get. And I would say for the most part, I agree with the stuff. Some of the things you can see there's an ideology that bleeds through, which I think pretty much all of us have. But this one was interesting. 94% of the time, the way a discussion starts determines the way it will end. So that means if I come in, let me back up, with a framework of emotion, blame, and attack, 94% of the time, that framework is going to determine how this is going to go. If I come in with an attack-based framework, then I'm going to end up with a force-based method of trying to impose change. 94% of the time, the framework is going to end up guiding the change. So when we do it Ohana style, we're going to do it Ohana by connecting rather than confronting. Oasis, because no one needs to have their guard up. That whole thing we did when we started, when you're faced with a salesman, you feel like you have to keep your guard up. You have to watch out for their sales strategies and sales tactics. You have to watch out for someone who's maybe using some psychology and persuasive techniques, using an assumptive close. You kind of have to be careful so you don't end up buying something you really don't need and probably aren't going to use and shouldn't be giving them their money for. When you're dealing with a manager and you already know that you made a mistake, or a client and you already know you made a mistake, do you ever feel like you have to have your guard up? You have to be ready for like whatever's coming? The Ohana change conversations means that when you have one of these and they know they can count on you to have these conversations this way because you've developed a reputation and a habit, they know they don't have to have their guard up because they know you're going to be looking out for them. They won't have to protect themselves from you because you won't be attacking them. And it's harmony by seeking understanding and collaboration. It's assertive because there's a forward and there's purpose and there's respect. And there's nobility by calling on our joint highest and best selves. And there is aloha by aiming at what's best for all. So this is what an Ohana conversation looks like. And I'm really not going to spend, hardly any more time on this, but it's that framework. And I'm going to share how this, the Ohana 101 framework is hero, villain, victim. So what's the hero? The hero is just the one who makes it better. The villain is the one who makes it worse. And the victim, of course, is the one for whom it is made worse. And so when you're going to do an Ohana conversation, your framework is Ohana, and we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit more. And the conversation, the communication is understand, define, be understood, which I've also gone over in some detail in others. In other webinars. And then the system is request, training, boundary, enforcement, boundary, change, relationship. And you can see how the framework of Ohana leads into a very simple request. The training boundary, when you understand training boundaries, what they are and how they work, they're an agreed upon method of shifting a habit. And then you have an enforcement boundary, and that's when someone either is a little bit disagreeable or they just have the hardest time making the change. But you come at enforcement boundaries in a friendly way because it's not about the person, it's about the behavior. And then you get down to the level of change relationship. And there's 4 levels of change relationship that I've covered elsewhere. And all of this is based on the Ohana Way. Now, the Ohana Conversations actually isn't in the book. In fact, the brand new 30th anniversary editions of the book is already 300 pages. And there's a lot of pieces to the Ohana Conversation that honestly could by itself be another 200-page book, comfortably. And so I teach it in the 6-week live course, because there's a lot of things. I mean, just when you look at these pieces here, request, training, boundary enforcement, boundary change relationships, there's a lot of things to know in there. The framework is Ohana, that we're going to focus mostly on framework right now. And then there's that path of the conversation. So let's take a look at Ohana in a bit more depth. And this is what we call the Ohana 5x5. Because there's Oasis and there's 5 things under Oasis. And then there's Harmony and then there's 5 things under Harmony, and so on and so forth. So the 5x5 is 5 lessons deep in each of the 5 Ohana topics. So looking at Oasis to begin with. So we have Oasis. Be a refreshing refuge. Some aspects of that include win-win or no deal. That if we can't figure out a way where you win and I win, no deal. Give to givers who give. Now the full quote is, give to givers who give. Give to takers only long enough to determine they are takers. And then quietly sift them out of your life. Now specifically what we mean by that is you sift out the taker, not the person. There's a difference. Now, if the person is a taker, you will end up with ultimately ending the relationship. But a lot of times it's a simple matter of just don't participate in the taking part of the relationship. So if, say, for instance, someone is always in the habit of asking for money. Every time you go out, they just don't have money. And they end up sometimes owing you hundreds of dollars at a time, and it just keeps accumulating. Well, if you begin to realize, okay, this is going to be a never-ending pattern, you just stop doing things with them where they may have to keep asking you for money. You just let them know that, you know, I love you and I'm happy to spend time with you, but I'm not paying for you anymore. And so we can do things that are free, or we can just double check and make sure that you have the money before we do something, because I'm not going to be covering yours anymore, just so that we have an understanding. And in Ohana Conversation style, you do that a bit more softly, but that's where you land. So give to givers who give means you're trying to increase the overall giving in the world. I give to someone who either gives back to me or gives on to other people. So what I'm doing is I'm fueling just the giving in society. Then be a safe person. Create a safe place. Be that safe person to talk to, the safe person to share with, the safe person to be in the presence of you. Now, yeah, I'm going to come back to a negative humor aspect when I talk about aloha and positive on purpose. So if someone in the chat can remind me of that, if you see me glossing over that, I would appreciate that. Then resolve, my, your, our, concede, trade, wins, leave no trace, better than you found it. Then we have harmony. Differences or issues to navigate, not causes for condemnation. Bad things or problems to solve, also not causes for condemnation. More for, less against, focus on what you do want. Facet truths, bring truth appropriate to the relationship, and just be polite. Then you have assertiveness. Define your wins, values, goals, and roles. More yes and, less no but. And some of this stuff is, when you say no, when you say but, is that you're negating, and you just think of it that way. So if you put an idea on the table, say, no, 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 no. What I just said is I need to sweep your idea off the table before I can present mine. If I say, oh, yes, that's a good idea, and then I add my idea. Now we're brainstorming. So now we're not choosing between ideas, we're adding things together, we're putting more pieces on the table, which creates an opportunity for us to create something amazing and new if we leave them all on the table. The compelling future, This is a big one. I have a point. You may also have a point. And the ecology check, just checking in to make sure it's good for you, good for me, good for the world. Then we have nobility. And there's 360-degree leadership, self-leadership, living by a code, chivalry and bushido, ladies and gentlemen. And this idea of be a light, not a judge. Being a light is that you help shed illumination on something. So rather than tell someone, you're wrong, you're bad. Judgmental is deciding someone's wrong or someone's bad. Condemning is deciding someone's worthless or unworthy. And so we can avoid judgment and condemnation, which then puts people on the defensive, because if someone comes at you with judgment and condemnation, do you feel like they're a safe person? Is that oasis? It really isn't. What tends to happen? People put their guard up and sometimes they dig in. But when you're a light, you're illuminating things. You're helping them maybe see some things that you see that they don't see. Now, likewise, you be open to them shedding light from their perspective so that you can maybe see some things that you don't see. And then you let people come to their own conclusions. That's really the hardest part of it. You let them come to their own conclusions, because they won't argue with their own conclusions rather than try to impose a conclusion. And then we have aloha. Love in its many meanings and manifestations. We talked about what some of it is, but that love stack. Ooh, I love the love stack. Agape, phileo, eros. Agape is character driven. That's who I am. That's why it's unconditional love, because it's not me showing up in relationship unconditionally. It's my character. And no matter where I show up, I have the same character. Therefore, the agape is unconditional. But now the phileo part, the phileo is the conditional part. That's how we decide who we like more than we like other people. The more we have positive connections, the more we're going to develop better relationship. The more we have negative connections, well, it's likely we'll develop positive relationships. And then eros is the experiences. And then this love is not jealous and does not envy. This idea, there's things love is and there's things love is not. And love is not what love is not. Now, it may show up with love a lot, but it is not the same thing. If someone says, well, the only reason I'm jealous is because I love you. Okay, well, those are not the same things. You can be jealous of someone you don't love just because you feel insecure. And you can love someone and not be jealous because you feel really secure. The jealousy comes from the insecurity, which may be objective insecurity, that you objectively are insecure, or it may be entirely subjective, that there's stuff just going on inside of you. Factually, on the outside, you may be pretty solid. And if you just understand that even if they show up together, those are different things, that moves aloha forward in powerful ways. Okay. Oh, yes, and phileo bank account positive on purpose. I'm going to mention the negative humor part right now, because this is a key, and I'm going to share a story. So the phileo bank account works on this idea. You have positives and you have negatives. And negative is 4 times more powerful than positive. And interestingly enough, even the Gottman research, among other sources, have played this out over the years, where you need to have an outsized percentage of positive to negative just to stay even. Well, that means if, I'm going to use, say, negative humor as an example, where I am mean, but it's a funny mean. Well, if I'm just mean all by itself, that's a 4-point negative, and then boom, down for 4 points. But if it's actually funny, I can gain a point for funny. So 1 point up for funny, but if it's mean funny, it's 1 point up, 4 points down. I'm losing 3 points with every single one. This one I learned the hard way. I was 15 years old now. When I was 15, we called it basing on someone. I don't know what it's called on there, but essentially all it boiled down to is it's making negative jokes at someone's expense And it was like you scored points by how well you zinged someone with something hurtful that was also funny. And me and my friend got this just lovely fellow teen again and again and again all evening long. I think she got us once or twice. And we must have zinged her 50 times during the course of the afternoon and evening. Well, our families were friends. And so, I mean, the reason she was at my place is because her family was over. Well, then later on, we went over to her place. And everyone else in the family was there, mom and dad and her brother and her sister, but she was gone. I'm like, okay, well, no big deal. That would happen from time to time. And then her family came over and she didn't come with them. And that was a little odd, but okay. Well, we found out after we had missed her, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in a row, that it was clear that she was avoiding us. Actually, that's not quite right. She was avoiding me. Because every one of those mean funnies, up a point for the funny, down 4 points for the mean, 50 times in one night, burning 150 points of phileo points, of love points, of relationship points that I did not have. It created such a powerful negative feeling in her that she never, ever wanted to see me again. If my family went to her place, she would leave. If her family came to my place, she wouldn't come. If the families were meeting someplace, she wouldn't come. She wouldn't even come. And just as an idea of how wonderful a young lady she was, just based upon who she is, she went to work for Nordstrom's while she was still a teenager. In her 20s, she became a manager. By her 30s, she's a store manager, and then she's a district manager or regional manager. I'm not sure what they call it for Nordstrom's. Like one of the penultimate stores that known for customer service because she was that great of a personality, that great of a human being. And yeah, I'm in my mid 50s now, so this is 40 years ago. I have never seen her since. I've seen her brother, I've seen her sister, I've seen her mom and her dad. I've never seen her because of one night, 15 years old, with negative humor. Negative humor. It was legitimately funny. We were all laughing, but every single one was hurtful too. So phileo bank account, positive on purpose, shows respect for the fact that negative is 4 times more powerful than positive. It is easier to break something than it is to build something. So be positive on purpose. It cost me a friendship 40 years ago with someone who would have been a great friend. And even if you just want to be mercenary, look at a business standpoint. I destroyed a relationship with a high-ranking Nordstrom's manager and executive because of how I behaved when I was 15 years old. Because there's such a strong negative anchor to the emotion that her first feeling when she hears my name is, ugh. And I'm not likely to overcome that. And then we have love, joy, and peace. I put those together, and that's bliss. And it's seeking the joy and seeking the peace. And I'm hoping that she's found all of this for herself. I mean, I know she got married, she had a family of her own, and she had a great life. I just didn't get to see it or be connected to it. And then God, people, self, there's kind of this chain of loving. There's the way Jesus turned this phrase was kind of fascinating. Because, so this man shows up to Jesus and says, what is the great commandment? Because, we have the 10 commandments. We have over 600 specific rules and stuff. And he says that the biggest of them is to love God. But he doesn't stop there. He goes, and the second is like the first. So someone asks, what's the one? And I said, well, here's the one, love God. He says, but number two is such a close second, I can't just not include that in the answer. And he says, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, I'll tell you, the part people typically get is love your neighbor. The part sometimes we miss is love yourself. So it's important to get that nailed down, to love your neighbor as yourself, to have this healthy self-relationship. And now, there's a couple of key points in this, and this is more personal than business, so please indulge me. If I have a healthy love for myself, when I open my heart, all I have to do is let that same love out to others, and it will be a healthy love to others. That's pretty straightforward, easy to understand, I think. Here's the flip side. If I have a healthy love for myself, and someone else shows up in my life and they're giving me love, I'm accustomed to what healthy love looks like, and unhealthy, and particularly a toxic thing claiming to be love, isn't going to align very well, and I'm going to recognize that as a problem. If I don't have a healthy love for myself, I might engage in all these quote unquote love relationships. I'll put that in quotes because it's not really love, but I can't really tell because I'm not experiencing this healthy love internally. So my internal measuring rod on that isn't set up right. And so I don't have the standard to see it well. And so in all these things, being able to do it well for yourself is also very important. So that is an introduction to the Ohana Way. And actually, you know what, let me back up here a little bit because I want to share something else in nobility. I glassed past self-leadership because I wanted to get to my horrible story of negative humor. Self-leadership. There's two parts of self-leadership. One is the leadership side, and that is making good leadership decisions. The other part is self-submission. And self-submission, submission is to submit to the good decisions. Now, if you're my leader and you tell me to do something, and then tomorrow I come back and say, I don't really feel like it. And you say, okay, well, that's fine. You don't have to do it. Do I have to do it? I don't. But if you're my leader and I come back tomorrow and say, I don't feel like doing it, and say, well, is there any reason bigger than you don't feel like it? I said, well, no, I just don't feel like it. And say, well, then do it. Well, then I'm going to have to do it. On self-leadership and self-submission, I'm asking myself permission. And that's where it gets tricky because the one who doesn't want to do it is the one deciding whether or not I have to do it. So self-leadership and self-submission then means I need to try to set up the structure where I'm looking at the decision and I'm submitting to the decision. So if I don't feel like it, am I challenging the quality of the decision? If not, I should just do it. And one of the things sometimes I'll say is, if I won't follow me, who I agree with, why should anyone else follow me, whether or not they agree with me? Well, of course, we have my program coming up. I'm going to suggest that you learn how to build Ohana. The Ohana culture pre-solves many people problems. The Ohana culture powers relationship protecting resolution of problems. People like working with people they like. When problems are resolved well, which means like you have a problem and then it's resolved well, it embeds genuine connection into the DNA of your relationship culture. Now think of the cost of conflict that you have personally seen or you've experienced. Think of the potential cost of conflict with one great client, with one critical team member. One conflict could cost How much? What's the dollar cost of that? And I'll tell you a big one. What is the cost of conflict with someone who could be a referral partner? What is the cost of conflict with a key person in a network that could cost you a network? If you have a job, conflict with the boss, or conflict with a coworker that is more important to the company than you. What could it do to an entire career if you accidentally alienated someone who is key to your career in your area? One conflict could cost how much? I mean, what kind of dollar value could you put on that? You know, as I do more work in the corporate sector, if just looking at the business costs, what is the business cost of having lost relationship with the Nordstrom's executive? And then for building Ohana, think of the joy of genuine connection. Have you ever like really connected with a person? And the benefit of being the professional that your best clients like and trust with their friends and their colleagues. And the joy of being able to see a problem and walk into the problem already knowing you're both going to win. So you tell me, is Ohana worth your time? Is it worth your energy? And I've already got some signups, or at least promising to sign up. And by the way, okay, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, it's at scottwith1t.com. And in fact, let's see, I don't have it handy ready. I'll even go ahead and stick it in here right now just for those who are asking, scottwith1t.com, because I'm pretty sure the chat doesn't show up in the recordings. So that means if someone's watching the recording and I put it in the chat, the people watching the recording aren't going to be able to get it. But I'm going to take this out. So just, if you want to get that down right now, it'll show up again at the end. So scottwith1t.com. But when you're building Ohana, can you see that it avoids costs you don't want to pay and it gives you benefits that you desire? And the simple question is Ohana worth your investment? And anybody else need this? Okay, because it's going in 3, 2, okay, I'll leave it for, okay, and there we go, okay. Okay, here's a reality. I grew up with Ohana, and I still found I needed a system to share. And I figure if I grew up with it and I needed a system, we probably all do. Now I'm going to kind of gloss through this quickly on the offer part, because I'm pretty sure most of it, well, I mean, some of you already signed up. So the hero, villain, victim framework, that's genius. Make sure you get that down. And the understand, define, be understood sequence is priceless. I only glossed over it here, but jump into the other webinars. And of course, we're going to spend time on this in the program. That's priceless. Just to touch on it really quickly, and listen to understand. Don't listen to respond. Definitely don't listen to argue. Listen to understand. Then define any ambiguous terms, or, and here's an important secret, any terms you might be using differently than the other person. And then make your point. That's powerful. So some of what you get when you join my Ohana Conversations course, you get the 2-page. And like I said, I'm going to gloss over this a bit more quickly than usual if you will excuse the extra speed. And so you get the 2-sheet. I suggest you spend a minute a day on Ohana, but heck, if you do 10 seconds a day, you're doing pretty well. Daily is powerful. And I know I've talked about this idea more in other webinars, and we're going to be touching on it in the program too, but just know daily is powerful. And I give you the 2-sheet, print it up, put it up someplace that you can see it, just as a reminder, just as a refresher. And then do the 1 minute per day. As a martial arts grandmaster, all I ask my students to train is a minute a day. And as a pastor, all I ask my congregants for is 10 seconds per day with God. Just read or recite one verse and say, thank you, God. Now, is more better? Absolutely. I am totally in for more. But more is only better if you actually do it. Too often, we just don't get around to the more. Daily and done beats would have been more if I got around to it every time. And so you get the 2-sheet, you get the short book. I know I'm kind of skipping some slides here, but I wanted to spend some more time on the content with you. You get the long book, and you get the workbook, because there's also a workbook involved, and that will allow you to go in deep. You get a 6-lesson video course. You get a downloadable audio course. You get the handouts for the course. So whether you learn visually, you learn auditorially, or you learn by doing and doing it yourself, you have 3 different modalities you can use to learn, which allows you to apply the triple touch technique in an interesting way. And if you get the program, there's actually an exploration of the triple touch technique that kind of unpacks this in more detail. But from Earl Nightingale, which is the first of the leaders that I heard this from, all the way up to me, who is, I heard this out of my own mouth, so I'm the last leader that I heard this from. We recommend you go through programs 3 times. The first time is just for awareness. And so you're not actually really reading, you're not really listening, you're just kind of looking at the pages, you're putting it somewhere you can hear it while you're doing something else. Then light attention, and now you're kind of flipping through, you're reading chapter summaries, or you're listening to it sometime, maybe when you're still doing something else, but making sure you can always hear it. And then the 3rd time is more focused attention, and there's more of a system to that. And then this is the big one. Now this starts on Thursday. So depending when you get to this replay, it's Thursday, July 16th, we're starting. So if you got to the replay after July 16th, you already missed the very first class, and you'll be limited to getting the replay on that if you sign up then. But the 3 Ohana Conversations 6-week live online training, and this is the big one. And now, what if I was going to put the dollar value on this? Well, we already talked about what's the value of a saved client. What is the value of a saved referral source? What is the dollar cost of being blasted on review sites on social media? One of my professional friends found out about the existence of sites he had never heard of in his industry until an upset former patient blasted him all over the sites. And what is the dollar cost of replacing a key employee and getting a new one profitably productive? Well, I can actually give you some of the numbers on that. About $3,500, up to $7,500. If it's a management level, executive level person, 50 to 250% of their salary. But what's the dollar cost of the person you lost was your business partner? The business may not survive that. And I've watched that happen, actually, and that's kind of sad. And there's a whole story involved, and I'm pretty sure I've told that story in other webinars, so I won't go over it again here. But getting this stuff wrong can be expensive. The biggest one I've been close enough to kind of watch unfold was a $1 billion alienation. It was crazy because of the way one executive treated his team. Is that nuts? Creating your boss's #1 international competitor because of the way you treated people. It's crazy. So what's it worth? I mean, well, just in dollars and cents, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'd be comfortable calling it the $15,000 value. And you get recordings. Now, the recordings aren't as good as being there live because you don't get to do the exercises and the practice and ask your questions. So I'll give that a third. I'd say that's worth $5,000. But Of course, I'm not going to charge you that. Well, I'm not. Actually, maybe I shouldn't say of course, because that's not of course. Because in the future, I may charge that. But right now, I'm not. Right now, it's $19.97. But because of COVID, I got locked out of doing my live events. And so we're going to do the online training without a 3-day follow-up. And because of that, I'm dropping the price down. No, forgot to do that in these slides. I'm going to go ahead and drop that price down. I'll do that right now to $14.97. So we're knocking off $500 because I can't do the 3-day that would normally be connected to. So you still get all the rest of the package, just with the 3-day live event that I would sometimes bonus maybe once a year. Right now, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it. So rather than say you'll get access to it when we do it in November or January, because I don't know yet, but I'm just going to take it out and we'll make it available later. So $1,500, I mean, if it saves one employee, you've already doubled your ROI. But just think about the individual relationships. $14.97 for all of that, that's huge. And I'll tell you something else I'm doing that's completely nuts. If you pay me $14.97, you will get, let me come back to my list, you will get all of those things on the list. And if you go through half of the course, which means you got all of the bonuses and half of the course, and after you finished half of the course, you said, this really isn't worth it for me. It just doesn't seem to be that valuable to me. You can tell me in class number 4 that it really hasn't been a value for you. And we can have a chat in front of other people, because honestly, if you've been having some challenges, you might not be the only one. And so long as you let me know by the end of class 4, I will refund your entire $14.97, and you keep the 2-page, you keep the report, you keep the book, you keep the workbook, you keep the video course, you keep the audio course, and you keep the handouts. But I am so sure you will see the value in this, that I can be confident of giving you a half the course, 100% money back guarantee, where you keep the bonuses. How nuts is that? And that's because I know how powerful this is. So for $14.97, you can go all the way through the course, past the halfway mark, have that week to consider it, and then let me know in the 4th class what you think. And if you say it's not worth it, I just don't want to finish the last couple of classes, you can do that and get your money back. That's how sure I am. Now, some people have told me, well, you realize there's going to be some people who will take advantage of that and just try to get the money back because they just want to get stuff for free. And yeah, and those people aren't Ohana. So if they're scamming the system, they're not getting this Ohana thing. And you can't do Ohana insincerely on an ongoing basis without it kind of folding in on itself. And in fact, when you pretend to Ohana, that's sometimes worse than not doing it at all. Because it's an act, and we know that. So that's why I'm confident that I can make this offer, because if you are Ohana, you're not going to game the system, because that's not what Ohana does. So I can make this offer, and I know I'm safe, because the only people I risk losing are people that aren't Ohana anyway. So then there we go. That's my guarantee. Is that a nuts guarantee? Is that too much? Some people have already told me it's too much. One more piece of content before I go. The good company, be a plus, not a minus, be a partner, not an opponent. Talked about this a few times. This is really important stuff when you're trying to build your know, like, and trust when you network. When I talk about Ohana networking, I spent more time here. So if you want to know more about this, and this particularly how this applies in business, check out the Ohana networking video. I should have that available for you somewhere. And check that out because that digs into the business application of that. So I expect I'll see you soon. We're starting this Thursday. So sign up now for the Discover Ohana course, and I will see you in person when, well, I guess when we get to do the Experience Ohana 3-day immersion again. But I'll see you on Thursday for the Discover Ohana course and the 3 Ohana conversations. And of course, we're going to do this for $14.97 instead of $19.97. Bum, 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 as a special reward for the current situation we are in. So go to the website, scottwith1t.com, and that's, I'll put that in here, SCOTWITH, the number one, the letter T.com, and sign up there, and you can get access to all of materials, and then that's where you can go to pay for the course. I will look forward to seeing you on Thursday, and we'll stop the recording, and if anyone has any questions, I will open up for Q&A right after we stop the share and stop the recording, and then we will unmute